Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a beautiful, sunny, late October day, 2025, about a week away from Halloween. I always love this time of year, but man, the weather's been great. We've had a little bit of rain. We're way behind in our rainfall, but it's coming back. It always does, thankfully. But with this terrific weather, I've been making best use of my outside time. Dividing it up between the excavating project for more space and hopefully future shop expansion, to slowly filling my boxes. Look, I found the benches I put in this garage about 3 years ago. And I vowed they would be for working on stuff, not horizontal storage devices, but the stuff won out. And now with the boxes and new shelving, I'm slowly putting like things in like places. I've only gotten from just about the door, which is just out of sight, to here, but it already feels fantastic. It'll be 10 years next June that I left my real job and started this one. And you know how it goes when you look 10 years in the future. I figured by now all my hot rod projects would be done. I would have started different ones. And I'd be sitting around in my barber chair, just staring at my hot rods by the fire in the shop every day, hanging out, you know. This would all become a giant man cave. Well, that'll probably never happen. I'll always be working. And I actually do have a barber chair coming. My buddy Charlie says he has me one. He has one he'd like me to have. So there's the start of that dream. But anyway, here we are 10 years in the future and still working on stuff. I actually spent the last decade working on mostly transmissions for everybody else. But that's okay. Someday it'll all come around. I try to check things off my mental list, and like the frame table I built last spring. Another project I've wanted to do is to have a dedicated engine test run stand. The steel for the chassis table just happened one day. I'm driving down the road and the guy's putting it out by the road, and I stopped and dragged it home. Cheap money, and it worked out good. I sat on it for 6 or 8 years before I did anything with it. And the engine test run stand, in the past, you've seen me use a Camaro subframe. I used that one, but I have others, and it's still an option, but you have to drag all the pieces in and put it together. Not much different than what I'm actually going to do, but on my list was to build a dedicated test run stand. And the truth is, I'm not really willing to part with that much steel just for that. So it had to be some kind of device that I came across. This piece of junk here, I bought at a yard sale. I think I paid like $20 for this, and that'll factor in a while. But the guy said it belonged to the railroad. It does have some pretty cool wheels and stuff on it, but it's bent and twisted, and the construction's not the greatest. And I thought this would be about the right size until you actually try to put an engine on here with a radiator and such. I knew the radiator would have to hang off the end. You'd have to make some kind of something to hold the radiator on one end, and a bell housing is what I'm going to use in the back of the engine, plus whatever controls you have. So it didn't take you long once I got this thing home to realize this is only good for really storing things on, and it's been sitting outside ever since. But fast forward to last Wednesday night. Once again, Marketplace provides again. There was a picture with no dimensions of this metal cart. The gentleman has 18 of them, or at least had 18 of them. And I contacted him Wednesday night and told him I couldn't get there until Friday morning. I'd be willing to pay for one ahead of time, but I'd like to have one. It was about an hour away. Thursday, he contacted me and said, hey, if you want two, we'll lower the price. And I paid $125 a piece. Now, this is 3/16 metal. Box tubing underneath is for forks for a forklift, so you can lift the whole thing up. He thought they came out of a printing operation, and there was axles on these on both sides, and there was some kind of rolls of something. There is some ink-looking substance down here. I don't know, nor do I care. Now, there was no dimensions, and just looking at it, it looked to be about the right size, whatever that was. And Friday morning, I already had the short bed LS Swap Dodge running when I was going to respond to the guy that I was on my way. I noticed it said he edited the ad, and now there was dimensions. And they're about 41 by 59, almost 60 inches this way. Obviously, 2 of these in the back of the short bed Dodge weren't going to ride very well, especially for an hour. I mean, I could get them in there, but they're going to bang together and, worse than that, beat up the inside of the bed on the old Dodge. It's not fantastic, but I don't want to make it worse. I'm kind of funny like that. I can't stand ruining things. So I looked around, and the dump trailer, my next choice, was already hooked to the Suburban. I've been hauling stone with it for my project out back, so that's what I did. Funny part of the story, if you got a minute, sit on down. I normally, if you go way before the internet and we were going somewhere, I'd be the guy to have the paper map and figure out the best route, and that was it. But I blindly just put the address in the GPS on my phone and took off, and I followed it. It was a beautiful ride. I only went through about 14 school zones and small villages and camp roads. I went over a mountain. It never got to dirt, but I thought it was going to. And where it dumped me out is about 5 miles below a majorly traveled road that I use all the time. If I had just taken the time to even look at a map, I would have gone my regular route. But hey, I wouldn't be telling you this story now, would I? So I got there, loaded up 2 of these. It took up 2/3 of my dump trailer pretty much. And because they're on wheels, and also don't want to wreck my dump trailer, which the powder coat inside that body is unbelievable. I haul rocks and stone and it hasn't hurt it, so these probably wouldn't hurt it either. But I got them all lashed down and just went back by regular route. Shut the old GPS off, which a lot of times is the best way. So now I get them home last Friday. I mean, look at the size of them. And they're too nice. I can't just put the one I'm not going to use, at least immediately, outside because I don't want it to rust. So I'm going to paint the other one and then store it outside. But let's get to the actual test run stand. I can now see that this really isn't too big. It may be 6 inches too big, but it'll be nice. I borrowed one once before, a test run stand, and it was so compact you could squeeze the engine on it, but inevitably you're testing it and you might have to work on it and really don't want to take it off to put it on an engine stand every time you've got to do something to it. I even considered putting a engine stand head on this so I could actually spin the engine around and work on it, but I don't think I'm going to do that. What I am going to do, I believe, is put studs on this bell housing. Is a truck bell housing, so the bearing retainer is bigger than a car transmission, so it's good for a square body, which it came out of, square body Chevy pickup. But I'm going to just cut off the heads of a couple 1/2-inch bolts, and there'll be studs in the bell housing that'll go through some metal here and probably just pin it. I knew I was going to do that, but my brother was here this morning and he took one look at this the box tubing and whatnot and said, hey, if you had a couple of these, which I do, I have one set of this style engine cradle, they'd probably sit right on there, and they do. I don't use these because you go to get an engine and it'll sit in the bed of your vehicle okay, but so do the wheeled ones that I have a ton of. And when you get them home, they're stuck wherever you put them. There's a spot for wheels underneath, and I once bought a set of casters, and all they did is break off, so these have been under the bench ever since. But perfect for this, I'm going to put a piece of angle somewhere and just a pin through that also, so you'll just lower the engine down, let the pins of the bell housing go through the bracket on the stand, set this down and just put a pin through it. I'm only going to test Chevys, so you could modify for anything you want, but for me, this is going to work 99% of the time, if not all the time. I thought the upside down angle iron on the top that supports both ends was going to be in the way, but the engine crane legs miss going underneath here by about 1/2 inch, and they're never going to clear the box tubing, which I like the box tubing because I can picture myself loading up the whole rig and putting it in the back of my truck, so, or wherever I'm going to go with it. So the box tubing's staying. It's an integral part of the test run stand now anyway. But with the gantry crane, the chain's long enough, it hardly hits here, and I was able to set it right down there. No problem. So I still might make it removable. So if you had a blower or a tunnel ram or whatever and you wanted to work on it, it might get kind of close there. So a simple mod would be to cut that off, put a couple tabs on it, and bolt it back on. I'm sure this thing is rugged enough to not even need this piece the way I'm going to use it, but it's already there. So I'll probably put it back. I have a lot of used radiators, but this particular one was in a tube chassis car. It already has like a pin mount underneath, so all I need to do is put a couple of pieces of round stock once again on the box tubing, set the radiator studs down into it, put a pin in it, and that'll be it for the radiator. Somebody went ahead and put fans and stuff on it. They spent a lot of time making these tiny little brackets, if you can see them. I need the shims right here. The fan themselves sit right against the core. If you were driving any distance, it would rub right through the important part of the radiator that has some water in it. So it'll be fine for this. The radiator itself has a lot of custom welded brackets. Somebody did a fantastic job modifying it. But it's kind of custom for whatever it was in, and it's an ugly duckling with all these brackets on it. So it's a Be Cool radiator. It's a nice one, and I think it's found its home. If I ever had to take it out and put it in something, well, it's not permanent. So that's the goal of everything. I'm going to store the radiator, the brackets, everything inside, and the painted frame is going to live outside. So I'll only bring it in when I need it. My wiring is going to be modular the same way. I'm going to make a box that has a tachometer, oil pressure, maybe a voltmeter, and all the wiring and stuff that is just free to itself, kind of like a scan tool. And you'll just mount it or hang it somewhere, plug it all in, and when you go to store it outside, store it with everything else inside. I know for sure I have several sets of headers that'll clear here, because that's kind of a concern. It is out a long ways because the base is quite large, 41 by 59, I guess. But I know I have at least one, and the beauty of a small and big block Chevy, you can always put the headers on upside down. So there's always a way to accomplish that. Maybe some kind of muffler. I'm still not sure if I thought about bolting the bell housing to these metal uprights here. I don't know if you can see them, but there's 2 pieces of flat bar on that end. But as it worked out, the spacing of the transmission mounting bolt holes in the bell housing miss on one set and just barely go in on the other. So that's why I have it this direction where I'm wide open and I can do whatever I want. The motor and transmission, the motor and bell housing will come back this way a little bit more probably. And it's not a bad thing. Like I said, you got room to work on the front. If you had to do whatever or wanted to work on it, it's not bad sitting down to work on it. So this isn't so bad. Maybe I'll rethink that engine stand rotator. Maybe. We'll see. I also picked up, this is just coming to me, my brain, my wheels are turning as we're sitting here talking. This thing's so rugged, up on top, on the other end probably, I have another one, the yellow crane I have on my bench over there, you've seen a few times. I have another one of those, goes in a receiver hitch. I bought it when I bought the metal worker. I actually used it to load the metal worker at the storage facility we're at. And I think I paid $50 for that. So the goal here, once again, like I started in the beginning of the video, I came across this and most of the hard work's done. I can't imagine what they paid for each of these to have at least 18 of them made. The casters are bolted on. Sometimes I cheat when I build stuff like this and I weld the casters on because I don't want to go through the hassle of drilling and tapping a giant piece of steel or nut and bolting it. I figure the caster might outlast whatever I'm doing. So in my entire life, I don't think I've ever changed a caster that I installed, you know, on something big like this. But on my big bench, I did bolt them on. So I guess not every time I cheat, but it comes across my mind every time I build something. But clearly they had a plan. They had to follow it. This is professionally made and they're really nice. And I can't imagine, well, if I was to guess, I paid $125. They probably cost 10 times that. I don't know. But I'm sure they weren't cheap and they're really well made. And I'm going to do my best to make something out of it. Now, I just got these last week. And if you're watching this and are crazy enough to want to do the same thing, if you go to Maine or New Hampshire Marketplace on Facebook and look up Metal Cart, it's in Ossipee, New Hampshire, you're probably going to find it. I told the guy I'd spread the word and send him a picture when I was done with it, if he still had any, but hopefully he sold them all by now. I get an idea he buys a lot of stuff at auction and resells it. That was he didn't tell me that, but that's kind of the vibe I got by the other stuff he was showing me. And he was definitely set up to handle stuff. He had a forklift and, you know, loading these up was a piece of cake. So after my brother left me with a great idea this morning, he probably wasn't halfway home, and I had this 427 tall deck block mounted, sitting here, and gone and found the radiator and the bell housing. I found the bell housing before he left, so I've done this in my mind, I don't know how many times, and now it looks like it's actually going to move forward. So the next time you see this, there's really not a lot of fab work or anything. I make a box and some wiring and a few brackets, and I have at least 2 engines I want to test right away. My 377 that I built a few years ago now, 3, 4. That poor engine's been sitting around 15 waiting to be run again. That needs to be run, and I think I'm going to test run it, because video it test running. So if anybody, I'm never going to sell it, but at least I'll know what it sounds like and decide what I'm going to put it in. But I think I will buy the fogging oil like you do on a boat every year. Seems like the last thing I should do before I store it after I run it. Right now it's all full of oil from assembly. But I don't want to leave anything to chance to rust. And this is totally overthinking it, because if you buy an engine that's been run, I have a lot of engines that have previously been run sitting around here that you just don't worry about it. You know, if you got a car sitting in your yard and it sits there for 5 years, you probably don't worry about the engine, but boats, they do. I don't know why we don't think about that more often. So anyway, I think that's the plan. Fog it down when I'm done and let it sit, unless I immediately put it to use, but you never know. So more on that in the future, and test run videos. Have a great day. Enjoy the sunshine. Hope it's nice wherever you are, because there's people from all over the world that end up watching these videos, which is incredible to me. And I do my best to get back to people that respond, but I never realize there's so many ways to get a hold of me, and sometimes the messages get built up. So if I don't get right back to you, it's not on purpose, but I can only do what I can. So, hey, have a great day. Talk to you later.